great.
This time we'll call the meeting to order. Is there anyone that'd like to offer an invocation?
I would.
Okay.
Thank you, Father, for a beautiful day. Thank you for your blessings, for your goodness, for the privilege of doing business in our community. Thank you for the leaders that have been put in this place to serve, minister tonight, and just give wisdom in all areas, we pray in Jesus' name. Amen.
Amen. Pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Are there any changes to the agenda this evening?
Yes.
I would entertain a motion to approve the agenda.
I move to approve the agenda.
Second.
Moved by Commissioner Hash, second by Commissioner Hutchinson to approve the agenda. Is there any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye. All opposed, same sign. Motion passes. Moving on to public comments. This is a time where citizens are encouraged to speak publicly. We request that you state your name and address, speak respectfully, and limit your comments to 3 minutes. I see an awful lot of folks here. Are there anyone that would like to make a public comment? Anyone online? Going once. Moving on to the discussion agenda, the Cloud Core budget request.
Good evening. Tonight I would like to present the 2022 funding request on behalf of Cloud Corp. Included in your packets was the 2021 directors list. So our current director list right now, our 2021 budget, brief overview of projects and up-to-date information. I'm going to pass on that this evening, given your agenda, and we'll come back and present what we've been doing thus far through Cloud Corp. You'll notice in the funding request, again, we haven't changed it. It's still asking for $55,000 for the general operating fund, and then an additional $3,000 earmarked for the small business development classes. And that brings the total to $58,000. The $3,000 small business development course budget is probably one of my favorite things that we are able to offer the people coming in and wanting to start businesses. These classes, Linda Sutton does an amazing job with, and people always comment and send feedback to Luke Mahan, who's Republic County Economic Development, because we partner together, Cloud Corp in Republic County, for these classes. And we're always getting feedback and great surveys about how helpful it was. There are a lot of people who take these courses who don't end up even taking the second night of courses, because after the first night, they realize they're not ready, or end up taking, both nights of courses and just flow with their project and end up doing great things. So it's really important. We also do some consulting services with them. So in these dollars, if a person happens to take the courses and they need a little bit extra one-on-one time with Linda to either finish developing their business plan or their projected cash flow, we will work out some hours in there for consulting for them to work with her at no additional charge to the person taking the courses. So just kind of wanted to point it out. That is a really good thing that we're able to offer our county residents. We have not increased and asked for a budget since 2016, and we're not asking for an increase this evening at all, just that you would consider the $58,000 for the 2021 or 2022 funding year. Question? Thank you.
Thanks, Kim. The Frank Carlson Library budget request.
Well, Mr. Mayor and Commissioners, thank you for the opportunity to come and talk to you tonight about our budget request. The budget request that was submitted to you shows the funding for 2020, 2021, and 2022. And you might note that there was no increase in our request between 2020 and 2021. But this year, the library board is requesting an increase. And basically, it's going to cover two items. And those items are insurance, because you know insurance costs continue to rise. And that happens even if you make no claims. So that's insurance. And the other category is payroll. And those of you who have had a close association with the library over the years, either because you've been library board members or because as mayor you have been present at our meetings, you know that payroll has been an issue for some time. Okay, so we don't have reliable crystal balls, and there's no way to know whether there will be a hike in minimum wage in the near future. But what we do know is that minimum wage has not increased since 2006. You know, many businesses in our community are going to be financially strained if the minimum wage is increased to $15 an hour. Really few of us can afford an increase of that magnitude, and the Frank Carlson Library is in that category. The library board is hoping that if minimum wage is increased, that it will be an incremental deal, and so the 2022 budget reflects a very modest 50 cents an hour increase for hourly employees. Right now, all hourly employees at the library make less than $12 an hour. A 50-cent increase would push one employee over that threshold. And that is still $3 less than what has been kicked around as a $15 minimum wage. The library employs a total of 9 employees, and I'm the only library employee who is not hourly. Most of our employees have college degrees. 2 of us have master's degrees in library science. It's the opinion of the library board that most library employees are underpaid if you consider their educational level, their length of service at the library, and their work assignments. 4 of us are regularly performing tasks that normally require a degree in library science. Our IT person has worked as a computer specialist in both public and private sectors. And our custodian was a licensed electrician before he retired and gratefully came to the library as our part-time custodian. The increase in spending on personnel is reflected in the library's benefit fund request. As you know, our request is always a two-parter. We have the general fund request, and then we have the benefit, which is separate. Most benefit expenses are directly tied to wages. The library board expects an increase in health insurance costs next year because, you know, that's the way, that's the way it always works. And although those health insurance costs look high, they're the best the library board could do. That's the best they could negotiate when the contract was up for renewal last year. So if you have questions about the budget request, I'd be more than happy to answer them. If you want representatives from the library board to attend study sessions, we can do that too. So if you've got questions, if you'd like clarification on some of the budget items, I'd be more than happy to talk to you now or at a later time. So, thank you so much for the opportunity.
Thanks. Moving on to the Housing Authority budget request.
Okay, so I'm here on behalf of the Housing Authority for Cloud Village Apartments. We were established in 1978 as an agent of the city. And although we're considered an agent of the city, we haven't received funding from the city until 2018. And that's when our request started. So we would like to just request $7,200 this year. We use the funds to help with updates, more major type updates, not just regular maintenance. And so the funds that we received this year, we're working on replacing all the exterior doors of the apartments. And some of the major projects that we have that we're looking at is we want to finish replacing all of our windows in the apartment, but that's $40,000. And then we're looking at wanting to replace our sidewalks because they're only 2-foot wide sidewalks and they're getting in poor shape. So I've been searching for grants and trying to find money to do those larger projects, but we appreciate any amount of money the city provides and are happy that the city decided to start giving us some funding and appreciate it. Short and sweet. Do you have any questions?
How many of I know that the window project was a lot larger. How many of those windows have you got done? Like, are you halfway? Or?
We got all the bedroom windows done.
Oh, okay.
So we just need to do the living room windows, which the original windows are 1978 windows that most of them don't open, you know, so.
Is everybody on window units? Is that how they do it, or?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. So that would help tremendously too with the tenants' electric bills.
They pay their own.
They pay their own electric, we pay everything else.
Thanks, Sheila.
Okay, thank you.
Moving on to the Senior Center budget request.
Good afternoon. I'm happy to say I'm walking this year instead of rumbling up with a walker. So thank you for the opportunity to come again this year and speak to you all. On behalf of the center, I want to thank you for all the funding that we've received in the past. It helps us stay open in providing meals to all the citizens of the city that need our help. It's always appreciated by myself and from our nutritional staff that provides those tasty meals for those that dine in, as well as our Meals on Wheels participants. This year, we are once again asking for help with the $10,000 donation that you give us. $7,000 of that goes to the nutrition staff to try and boost their wages to get them up and be more competitive. Without that, they would be in sad shape with their salaries. With your help, it gets them up to in the $9 plus range, which is again lower than what minimum wage is going to be, encroaching a lot higher, but it gets them to a lot higher amount than what they'd be without your help. The remaining $3,000 of that $10,000 goes into our general fund, which helps the center at large. So when we have people that come in for activities or other things that go on at the center, it helps us to provide what's needed in that area. Some of those things that the kitchen staff helps provide when they're still there are cookies and drinks and snacks for the seniors that come in. Some interesting facts about that are, and I know that the North Central Flint Hills Area on Aging controls what happens with the staff in the kitchen and rules that area. And we provide the center or a place for everybody to meet. But just to know a little bit about how the center is run, there's 38 locations that the Manhattan area governs over. And just as of last month, I believe, or the month before, there were still 2 areas that had not even opened their centers because of COVID. So we're well ahead of that statistic. And there was one that just now started having people come back to the center. So we're in a lot better shape than those areas. Just for the 3 past months, March through May, we've had an average of 79 people a month come in for exercises. which I think is phenomenal. So we're doing a great job as a city of getting the word out for people to be masked up and social distancing. For card playing, which is a big hit at the center, and we provide cookies and snacks for people. We have an average of 13 people for the various card games. For progressive cards, which is pitch, I had to learn that, I didn't know what that was. And boosters, they have an average of 24 people a month that come in 2 days a month. And Pinochle just got restarted, which was a big hit, I guess, in the past. And they've just started that, so we're getting some people coming in. Alan Grigsby comes in once a month to do hearing aid checks, and he averages by appointment 5 people that come in to get their hearing aids checked or their hearing checked. And we have blood pressure checks once a month, and we average 12 people that come in each time for that. Role players can be individuals that come in or couples that are starting to come in. And we get about 22 people that come in on the average a month. So we're starting to boost those numbers. And we have snacks and cookies and coffee and drinks available too, that our kitchen staff provides for that as well. So it's not just meals, but extra events that we provide for that too. And then, of course, we feed our drivers and our Meals on Wheels volunteers that take those meals to them. And then, of course, our transportation drivers also that go around and pick up our senior citizens and other people in the community. And on that round, just to kind of wrap up, we drove our vans 43,320 miles last year, just around the city and about 5 miles out, and collected $14,320 in fares in and amongst the COVID outbreak that we had. So we stayed in pretty good shape, all the turmoil that happened. So I want to thank you for the opportunity of bringing you up to date on what goes on just down the street, and would invite you in to come and eat with us at any time. We'd love to have you there. If you have any questions for me, I'd be glad to take them.
I'm really glad to hear that there's such increased activity. I know in my profession that connection is one of the greatest indicators of health and well-being, and certainly understand that last year was a big hit for a lot of that connection. So I'm really
Yes.
glad to hear that folks
Yes,
are getting back and engaged with one another.
yes, we're happy
Very
to.
good.
And there was even some time like during Christmas where we had to close down because we had an outbreak at the center, and we had some volunteers that helped get frozen meals out to our people that were shut in and weren't able to get to the center for those meals. We had some volunteers go and pick up meals at Glen Elder. They helped supply them when our kitchen staff wasn't available, and then took their own time to help get those out to the seniors that needed those. So we have people that will rally around. We have a great community here of people that will volunteer on their own time and on their own dime to make that happen. So I'm very proud of what we have and who we have and how things get done. So thank you very much for helping contribute to make that happen. We appreciate it.
Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Moving on to the Resource Center budget request.
Well, good evening, everyone. Nice to see you all back in public again. We're semi-public. Just a couple of things. So for most of you, at least, you have my written presentation. We're simply asking to sustain our $20,000 budget. And just to clarify that number just a little bit for you, that is mostly payroll and operational. It's designed to kind of keep our building going. It pays my payroll, does a couple of other things like that. So later on in this letter, when I talk about those new programs, 206 school bags, 160 Thanksgiving project baskets, food baskets, those are supplanted by grants almost exclusively, not entirely, but almost exclusively. So we do use our operational budget to kind of float those little bit of extras, where somebody comes in and says, I didn't get a basket, and we say, all right, I'll make this work. We'll squeeze this in. So that's kind of how we work that out, in case you've ever wondered. So when we list that long list of things, that's just basically kind of how we're keeping our time going and all the things that we're putting together. We did have 4 new projects actually go out during COVID, to try to expand our reach in the community. We added 15 hours of food bank time, exclusively food bank time to the hours. So previously we've been kind of locked in around 9 hours a week. We expanded to 15 so that folks would be able to have more time. We could keep them further apart, especially during that time when we wanted people to be as contactless as possible. We are going to keep the expanded hours. We're not going back to the smaller hours. We're going to stay at the longer hours to make that easier for folks. Another thing that might be of interest, the numbers have shifted just a little bit. So when I was here last year, we had a big burst of brand new people we had not seen before, individuals and families, and we were at about 35% of our overall number at that point. That kind of leveled off just a little bit, but we still are carrying about a 15% of our overall population for the year being folks that we saw only once and had never seen before. So COVID was tough, pushed through as best we could. Still carrying over 55% of that number is children under the age of 12 and seniors over the age of 55. So a lot of that really fragile population, folks I can't, sort of cover any other way, but I want to make sure that they're as well taken care of as they can be. And it's just very fortunate. And I tell people all the time, I'm never ever sad to say that I'm from a small Kansas town, because these moments like these are why I'm never ever sad of that, because we got through COVID because we turned to our community and we said, we have fragile people, we're gonna lose. Help us make sure that this continues to roll forward. And we did. So those programs all sort of pop along, roll along because of food drives from individuals and organizations, because of money from local grants, all that kind of stuff. And because you guys give me some money so that I can stay in my office, write those local grants and try to get some of that stuff done. So always grateful that you guys gave me a little bit of time to present. I'll try to keep it short. If you have any questions, please let me know.
Appreciate all you do as well.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Moving on to the action agenda, minutes of the June 2nd, 2021 meeting.
I move to approve the minutes from the June 2nd, 2021 meeting.
Second.
So we moved by Commissioner Hutchinson, second by Commissioner Hash to approve the minutes of the June 2nd, 2021 meeting. Is there any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. Motion passes. Moving on to appropriation ordinance number 11.
I move to approve appropriation ordinance number 11.
Been moved by Commissioner Wentz, second by Commissioner Belden to approve appropriation ordinance 11. Is there any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. Motion passes. Moving on to donation acceptance for the sports complex signs.
Mayor Commissioners, Chris is out at the sports complex this evening getting ball games going, so I'll be filling in for him. As you can see from your packet, he has an opportunity, we have, as a city, have an opportunity to accept a nice donation to build a really nice sign at the northwest part of the sports complex. It would be a brick base with a limestone sign engraved, shaped like a home plate, and then either relocation of existing Oregon Train statues that are at Razor Field onto the edges of the sign, or placing flower pots on them if the donors of the statues do not want them relocated. So he's working with those donors to figure out what to do there. But the value of the sign we felt was significant enough, and we wanted to give credit to those who were looking at and helping him figure out a way to make the sign happen. And so for those reasons, we wanted to ask that you accept that donation before we proceed with any of the work with it. We'll make sure that you're on board with putting that sign out there. If there's any questions, I'll attempt to answer them, but if I don't know, I'll have to defer to Chris and follow up with you a little bit later.
I was curious to see if he actually spoken to the Razors.
He was working on getting a hold of them. I don't know if he actually made contact with them or not.
Because they put them at Razor Field in honor of their parents. Wondered about moving them.
I know he was working to make contact with a member of their family to ask their permission as well.
I'm incredibly grateful for this. I think it's such a nice gesture from folks in our community. I'm always overwhelmed when people just step up and want to volunteer and do things without being asked, and this is awesome. So I would like to make a motion to accept the donations for erecting a new sports complex sign.
Second.
Moved by Commissioner Hutchinson, a second by Commissioner Wentz to accept the donations for erecting a new sports complex sign. Is there any further discussion? Couldn't agree more. Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. Motion passes. Moving on to concrete bids for the sports complex.
Mayor Commissioners, again, Chris is working on making some additional improvements there. Been working for several years to replace the bleachers. And we know that we had some help. I know Grant helped a lot get that project started. And then we had an opportunity to basically finish the project through the use of the first round of COVID money last fall. We were able to replace our wooden bleachers with aluminum bleachers, which we can disinfect much easier. So that was the nexus to COVID. In order to set those bleachers so that they're most effective, we need to have concrete pads underneath of them. And so Chris is trying to use his budget money wisely and spread that out over a couple of years to get that work done. Labor seems to be the shortage. As we've reported before, we're short on labor to help maintain the fields. And so Chris has been going out there daily to help out to keep the fields maintained, mowed, trimmed, restrooms clean, that sort of thing. So we decided that it'd be best to contract out this concrete work to be able to get it done and get the bleachers in place. So he did solicit 3 bids and only received 1 back, and that was from Garst Construction. We do want to take the deduct and use a smaller diameter rebar, which will knock off a few $100. And so we're asking you to accept the bid of Garst Construction in the amount of $8,675.60 to place this concrete pad so that he and Dirk can assemble the bleachers. And these bleachers would go on Stanton Field and the southeast field.
Is there any way to cool them?
That is on the CIP list. We'll be discussing that in a couple of
Or
weeks.
a little warm last time? Yes, it worked. The only question I really had, and are we really saving a lot going with 3/8 versus 1/2 inch? My only question is, it seems like a fairly minimal amount of savings compared to if there would be some reason the concrete would be compromised. It's going to cost a lot more than $230 to repair it. So folks that are more familiar with rebar and concrete might be able to answer that question better.
I haven't touched it in a long time. I defer to Ron. Ron, do you have any suggestions?
I think maybe one with the load is on there, 3/8 would be fine. It's basically just there to hold it together anyhow, gives it a little strength.
Sure. Fair enough.
I know it's been a lot of concerns about the bleachers being there, and I know I asked you already about how soon they could, once we approved, but do we?
Yes, Grant had indicated that they have room in their schedule to be able to fit us in as early as next week. So Chris just did not want to nail him down and schedule him until he knew that we had your approval. So I can let him know this evening and he can lock it in first thing in the morning probably.
I think if we look at the big picture with our hope of being able to put bleachers in the sports complex, something would all involve, I think, with the influx of the COVID dollars, we're still doing pretty well as far as putting this project forward, so.
And move to approve the construction estimate from Garst Construction for 4 concrete slabs at the sports complex in the amount of $8,675.60.
Second.
Moved by Commissioner Hutchinson, second by Commissioner Wentz to approve the construction estimate from Garst Construction for 4 concrete slabs at the sports complex in the amount of $8,675.60. Is there any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye. Aye. All opposed, same sign. Motion passes. Moving on to City Hall roof replacement bids.
Mayor and Commissioners, last time we talked about the need to replace the roof around City Hall and continue to experience some leaks. It's at the end of life. We did solicit bids. You can see that we sent out for 3 bids directly. I had asked the Duralast rep for the certified contractors within a 100-mile radius to make sure that we were getting some fair estimates. The only bid we received back was from Geisler Roofing. And so we are recommending that we accept that bid along with then adding on another 5 years manufacturer's warranty. I'll be happy to let it know, and I hate roofs with a passion, so the longer we can have it under warranty, the better, in my opinion. And we do have Mark Rikagi on the Zoom call. He's the rep for Duralast, and then Dallas Hassenbeck is here also to answer any questions that you might have about this, but we would ask that you go ahead and approve that. The other alternate, unit number 1, was the unit pricing for replacing any insulation. Staff noted that sometimes when they go up there, there is a little bit of ponding in certain areas. Because we're trying to beat the July 1st price increase, we did not take the time or go to the expense to have Campbell & Johnson or somebody else kind of design a roof system or really investigate that. So we know that we may end up in some spots where we have to cut out some soggy insulation, or we might have to build it a little bit. So that helps us to lock in that unit price for what that may be if we run into that situation. Given that, the other thing that we're asking for then is up to a contingency of up to 10%. And that would be for if we run into the situation where we have to replace some of that insulation, we can just go ahead and authorize that without having to delay and wait a couple of weeks for another meeting. So those are our requests, and I'm again happy to answer any questions. And we've got Mark on the line and Dallas here in the audience.
Is this what's currently on the road?
Yes, same.
So that's something we're having trouble with now?
The product that's on the roof right now is at 15 years. It's 13 years old now.
This has been very much the end of this.
Yes, they came in last fall, I believe, and did patching and said that patching should be sufficient to get us through to the end of warranty, which means that once it's that far gone that far into warranty, they've done the patching, they've met their obligations. That means that if we have further issues and we request a full replacement under warranty, they're not going to do it because they've met their obligations. So the roof is in need of replacement right now. Hopefully we can get more life out of it. What we're hoping is that the product has improved in the last 15 years, and so it will be an easy last for an additional 5. That's our hope.
Dallas, when can you guys get started and when do you think it'll be complete?
Well, for the bid, they were saying that by the end of the year, I foresee that it's gonna be sometime in August, maybe early September. With the workload that I have right now.
Any other questions? It's necessary, well, I don't know, visually, other better viable options. Well, I guess I'd entertain a motion to approve the base bid.
To approve the base bid of $77.93 and alternate number 2 for $4,588 from Geisler Road as well as the alternate number 1 for possible replacement of installation as needed.
Second.
So moved by Commissioner Bill and second by Commissioner Hatch. The base bid of $76,057.93 and alternate number 2, $44,588 for Geisler Road, as well as alternate number 1 for any possible replacement of insulation as needed. Is there any further discussion?
I would ask commissioners, would you give consideration to allowing us up to a 10% contingency in case we do need to utilize that unit pricing for insulation replacement? If we don't, we'll have to pause the work and come back to you for approval or have a special meeting. If it ends up, if it ends up beyond my 5,000 limit is what would happen there.
So how many square feet? How many square feet is the roof?
145 squares.
14,000. So I guess maybe one of my question is with that, if we had to replace as much of up to $1.50 a square foot, and we're having to exceed that $5,000 limit, to me, that would seem to be an indication that there's more problems with the roof than just filling something in, and it might warrant further conversation. So I'm not trying to hamstring that effort, but if we have to exceed that amount for that many square footage, then we may have bigger issues that putting in more insulation is not going to rectify. And it might warrant a deeper look than that. But there are roofing people that are far more educated than I am. It just seems like that's a lot of.
But if I can add, I sent my guys up and did a couple pours on it, and it's very dry. It's real good. It has a taper system that goes down to the back valley here. If you have any issues, it's going to be right there where the gutter is on that end. So I don't foresee anything that cost. So.
I guess I would feel comfortable with you working up towards that, your authorizability if we do run into issues like that. But if it's, I'm not trying to hamstring the progress, and I know it needs to get done when it's getting done.
We can work through it. That'll be fine.
It's been moved and seconded. Is there any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same. Motion passes. Appreciate you, guys.
Thank you.
Moving on to the Airport Advisory Board appointments.
Mayor, Commissioners, the advisory board had people apply for board members. Drew Good, Quinn Kendall, Lance Link, and Michael Owen put in for the positions. At the last board meeting, the board approved Luke Hood being a member, Quinn Kendall being a member, Lance Link being a member, and Michael Owen being an official member. Any questions on that?
That's just to stay within the limited number of positions they have and still involve that.
I believe we got 9 members.
Lance Link, I couldn't read their paper, but he served before for that.
Yeah, he's been on the board for quite a while now, and he's actually also a pilot. I know Luke Hood was at one time training to be a pilot, but I don't think he ever finished it. That'd be the only 2 I really know.
Well, Michael Owens is working toward his pilot's license too.
I don't know him.
I think as always, it's good to see people be interested in what's going on. It's hard for me to turn someone down. I'm not as familiar with Michael Owen as any of the other 3.
I move to appoint Luke Hood, Quinn Kendall, and Lance Link to the Airport Advisory Board, as well as R. Michael Owen as an ex officio board member.
Second.
It's been moved by Commissioner Wentz, second by Commissioner Hash to appoint Luke Hood, Quinn Kendall, Lance Link to the Airport Advisory Board, as well as R. Michael Owen as an ex officio board member. Is there any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor, say aye. Aye. All opposed, same sign. Motion passes. Excellent. Moving on to the wastewater treatment plant phase 2 ultraviolet disinfection system replacement.
Mayor and Commissioners, what I have is a change order for the wastewater treatment plant phase 2 to replace UV system. The reason it was never discussed during the design and engineering phase is both units were operating perfectly. We knew they had some age, but the bulbs and the wipers were readily available. And we weren't worried about it at the time. Until UV1 quit working, we didn't know the repair parts were non-existent and the units were totally just useless, unserviceable due to the age and the model that they were. They're 25 years old. So what is proposed is a retrofit system that will bring many years of service. So staff recommends approved change order number 1 in the amount of $131,900.54. Is there any questions?
I do. With the new funds coming from the state that can be used for sewer and water treatment, is there any reason why we wouldn't pursue using those funds so we don't further extend this bond and we can retire the bond early?
We had not considered that. We were looking at room in the bonds, and we were looking at one possibility of using those funds to further the capital improvement projects that are on our list for other water line replacements as part of the overlay projects. So we had not considered that as part of it.
It's a good merit for both.
Yeah, I mean, just continuing to change order on this project, it would seem like maybe this would be a good time to maybe look at other, just so we're not continuing this bond forever, that we retire it as soon as we can to get the fees off.
Where were we gonna look for the funds before we just decided to put it on? Was it?
I don't remember. I slept since then. I remember the conversation. I can't remember where we were looking at that.
Was it code money or something?
I haven't seen that one. Is that what, Commissioner, would you prefer us looking into that a little bit further and then bring this back?
How immediate, like what's our timeline we're working with? Can we wait to order it or?
Their lead time is quite long.
Okay.
So 14 weeks for
Yeah.
lead time.
For this, the actual UV system. other stuff is longer. That's why we haven't started the project. And we're how many months into it? They were gonna start in July. I mean, I'm bringing you a change order before the project even starts.
How many more are you gonna bring?
I'm gonna work on being the king of change.
Let's not do that. Because I think Ashley brings up a really good point. If we can retire a bond early, I think that's fantastic. And I think that's being a really good steward of the money that we have that taking from the city, but also seeing that bids were roughly 75% of what we had forecast. We should be able to retire the bonds early with that and still be able to use some of this funding to hopefully advance other water sewer issues that are going to have to be paid elsewhere. So
Yeah.
the 61 half a dozen of the other. We'll get both of them.
We can go back and look, we can bring it back to you next time. I'm a little concerned coming back on the 21st of maybe not having a quorum. So we'd probably be delayed about a month with the decision, but we can do that if you want us to look into that. Or if you just want to give us that direction that if we can use the COVID money to do that, if not, the change order is approved, we can take care of it on the back end, however you want us to proceed.
You know, I have an equipment fund that I usually don't touch, so there's quite a bit of money in there. Not equipment,
Project.
yes, project money. And
I think that's where we were looking, was your project funds.
I know you can't foresee something breaking down, but you know, in your proposal, you said that if the UV2 goes down, that we're,
right
you
now,
know,
yes.
we're
Yeah, if it goes down right now, we're
be in huge trouble
we'll
with
be
KDHE,
looking
so.
for maybe having to do something. I don't know. I'd have to look into if there was something to maybe loan us for a little while with them knowing that we were gonna purchase. I don't know. And we'd have to ask for forgiveness from KDHE really quick.
In my vast project experience, it seems the best way to guarantee against something breaking is to have something to back it up.
Yeah, and that's why there's two. I mean, that's why there's
Sure.
two UV systems.
So if we were to go ahead and move forward with authorizing new UV, this current one is probably going to keep on rolling for another 10 years. And if we decide to kick it down the road, we'll probably shut down tomorrow. So
Well, it seems to me it would be good to go ahead and get, it's gonna take 14 weeks to get it. That it would be better to go ahead and get it, but look into the fact that and what fund it comes out of, whether it's the bond or COVID money.
Yeah, right now, it seems like the timeline for getting any of that kind of equipment is really extended, and even after they promise you you're gonna get something, I mean, you know that very well.
Yeah.
So I agree with Marcia, I think we need to at least plan that we're gonna get it, and if we're gonna make some changes in how to pay for it.
So your first preference would be the COVID money, second preference would be equipment fund, and third preference would be the bond, is that correct?
That would be mine.
Yeah,
So with that then, do we need to structure the motion any which way to protect, knowing that bonds are they're specific in their application. So do we need to structure the motion to authorize purchase of these? Then we can start things rolling and then we can determine.
Can you help us out here?
So in the bond authorization for the project, there's broad authority to use the bond proceeds for anything related to the wastewater treatment facility. So there's really nothing specific the governing body to take with respect to how to pay for it. It's really just guidance like you've been talking about with respect to the preference being 1, 2, and 3. But nothing related to the bonds necessarily that needs to be included in the action item.
Fair enough. So we can authorize the purchase without designating exactly how we're going to pay for it, which really accomplishes both what we're looking for. We can start the process of acquisition, but then also we'll have a conversation as to where we can best utilize the funds. And so maybe it takes the time pressure off of that.
So when I bring another change order.
First and the last. Everything's going to go to plan. Always plan for things that never go to plan.
I move to approve change order number 1 for the treatment plant upgrades in the amount of $131,900.54.
Second.
It's been moved by Commissioner Wentz, seconded by Commissioner Hash to approve the change order number 1 for the treatment plant upgrades in the amount of $131,900.54. Is there any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye. Aye. All opposed, same sign. Motion passes.
Thank you.
Thanks, Jim. So now that we've authorized purchase for it, it'll just keep working beautifully.
We go.
Well, no, if we hadn't taken action.
You're right. Break tomorrow.
Moving on to the approval of dam safety inspection proposal.
Mayor Commissioners, we have 2 high hazard dams that help to protect our community, and both of those require re-inspection every 3 years. We're approaching on a 3rd year again, and so we did solicit proposals from several different engineering firms to do that inspection. RMA did the last inspection in spring of 2019, and they did provide us a proposal again, and it was lower than the proposal that we received from Schwab Eaton, and so staff is recommending to approve the proposal from RMA Engineering, not to exceed $5,300 to provide that safety inspection for both dams and submit the required reports to KDA. And that work does need to be complete before April 30th of 2022, so they have ample time to be able to complete that.
This is for Plum Road and then 20th Street.
Yes.
I move to approve the proposal from RMA Engineering LLC in an amount not to exceed $5,300 for dam safety inspections.
So moved by Commissioner Hutchinson, second by Commissioner Belden to approve the proposal from RMA Engineering LLC in an amount not to exceed $5,300 for dam safety inspections. Any further discussion? All in favor, say aye. Aye. All opposed, same sign. Motion passes. Moving on to the authorized signing of FAA grant agreement for taxiway rehabilitation.
Mayor Commissioners, this grant agreement is for the taxiway rehabilitation. Originally, this was going to be a 90-10 split through our entitlement funds, but due to COVID, they were able to make it 100% grant, so there's no local match required. This is also a project that we were attempting to get done simultaneously with the runway 1836. It's not looking like that may happen, so it may happen a little bit later, but either way, it will get done within the grant timeframe. FAA has quite a lengthy process to go through for approvals, as we've seen, and so this is one of those. You need to formally authorize us to sign this agreement so we can get it filed and we can start move to the next step of the project.
So when you say it's not likely, is that optimistic speech for it not going to happen, or that there's
We don't
still?
know yet. Having the taxiway project being done at the same time as the runway, there's a certain shallow window that they had to hit to get it to go right at the same time. And if not, then they'll have to wait till the end. I'm not sure if we really know that yet or not.
The taxiway is being done in phases, and they're gonna shut down. When they open the main runway, the new one, they're gonna shut down, and they're gonna do phases 3 and 4 at the same time. That's basically the north, south half of the existing runway.
Okay.
And they're gonna trim it down, and if the people can't come in and do it at that time, then they'll have to come in after they get, we open the whole airport and they'll just shut it down and do it.
Okay.
So,
It is what it is.
I move to authorize the city manager to sign the grant agreement for taxiway rehabilitation for $141,500.
So moved by Commissioner Hutchinson, second by Commissioner Belden to authorize the city manager to sign the grant agreement for taxiway rehabilitation for $141,500. Is there any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye. Aye. All opposed, same sign. Motion passes. Okay, moving on to the manager's report.
Mayor Commissioners, a couple quick items for you. We did receive the invitation to the annual Cloud Corp luncheon. It will be Tuesday, July 13th at 11:30, so just prior to our second study session. Would like to know from you in the next couple of weeks or so if you plan to attend. We are getting a table, so we've got 8 spots available, so do let me know on that. Another, just an update on the 150th committee. We did have a meeting on Monday and solidified some of the activities for the August 14th celebration. And then we also, this week, did discreetly dig up the time capsule. The committee had decided that based on some feedback that we've got from other communities that had done this, when they dug up their time capsule, it was saturated with water and items were ruined. We didn't want to encounter that at a great big gathering, and so we chose to dig it up sooner, dry the items out. And so on August 14th, we intend to display those items for public view at that point in time, and then make a ceremonial bearing of the new time capsule. So we wanted to make sure that you were aware that that's what the committee had elected to do. But things are progressing fairly well with that project. That's all I have to report tonight. Do you have any questions for me?
I'm excited to see it. Okay, staff reports.
I want to mention real briefly that we had step enforcement over Memorial Day weekend. We had 1 officer work 5 4-hour shifts. He made 51 stops, wrote 22 tickets, 27 warnings, and made 2 arrests. If anybody needs that broke down any further, I'd be happy to do that. So, thank you.
Progress is being made in the alley.
Thank you for that very descriptive and I'm sure accurate report.
They're about 75 feet from the end to put the manhole in, so. I'm not gonna say a time frame or anything, because I don't want to jinx anything, but it's going.
Progress is progress.
I just want to mention to you too that the new tennis court lights have been installed. John Hood told me he went by and turned them on one night and they're brighter than what we had before. So I haven't been there to look, and then we will be removing them old poles. We'll just give us a little time to get them out of there.
Good. Any other staff reports? Moving on to commissioner comments.
Sort of thing.
Marcia said not to start her last.
Fine, that's fine.
Thursday.
So I think I know what you're talking about with the trees that are down at the ballpark. They've been there for quite a while. I know they're really busy, but all eyes are kind of on that facility right now. If there's any way to get those kind of taken care of, I think that would be really awesome.
The only thing I would say, I'll try to make it brief. I know we've got a large audience that are ready to adjourn to our study session. I had the opportunity to take advantage of a lot of Concordia's fine offerings last night. First by attending some softball games, and have been really impressed with the flow at the ball fields. Everyone that's been working out there has done a really great job. I've heard from several folks how pleased they are with how things are going, and it's great to see it. And then after that, with being such a warm evening, the girls wanted to go to night swim, and so we went to that and saw a very active pool, and really glad to see us getting more use out of that, and to see, we were sitting with some other parents talking about how fortunate we are to have the pool that we do, and seeing the costs that some neighboring communities incurred to add so much to their pools and what we were really able to do very economically to add value to ours. I think they're all pleased with that, and it's going well. So it's nice. It's great. At this point, I would entertain a motion to adjourn to a study session.
I move to adjourn to a study session to discuss USD 333 facility improvements and funding options.
So moved by Commissioner Hash, second by Commissioner Belden to adjourn to a study session to discuss USD 333 facility improvements and funding options. Is there any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye. Aye. All opposed, same sign. Motion's adjourned.
We can take 5 minutes to kind of reset the room.